All right, everybody. Hello, hello. This is SOS Save Our Sites. This is our roundtable for August 2024. Happy to be here, everybody. This is awesome. Kind of let some people start flowing in. Perfect. All right. So, what's everybody up to today? Just before we get started, people start jumping in.
Well,
We're here to make change, that be the change we want to see in the world. We're done. I'm fed up with conferences representing me. I'll speak for myself when that's not who I am. I'm not a private equity or venture capitalist, at least not yet. Eventually, but what a concept to have actual site owners create a conference. So that's why we're here. That's why we exist. That's why we started this in the first place. And yeah, we're done being talked about, and we can just talk directly to sponsors, CROs, vendors, people that want to work in this space, and finally have a conference I actually want to go to. And guys and gals, we're not anti other conferences, whatever. I'm personally done going to any other conference except this. I might
so
do like some therapeutic area stuff, but like research wise, I'm personally done going to other conferences, mainly because I don't have time, and also because they're not that great.
so
Yeah.
would you say we're trying to or are a site advocate? We're positioning ourselves to be a site advocate, or we are a site
Well, we
advocate?
have to be site advocates because we're site owners. Like if we're not
Mhm.
advocates, our businesses fail.
Hmm.
It's really hard for us to not have sites' best interest in mind when we are creating this conference because we are sites still. So I don't know. It'd be kind of dumb. Like we don't really make money off of this SOS. We all make money from our sites.
Mhm. Well, I
Yeah.
would I would I would even say though, like we're not site advocates. I think we're coming together to create help sites come and kind of get their own voice to be their own advocate by giving knowledge and connection and networking, especially for the newer sites that are out there. I think it's definitely important that we give that space for them. But I mean, tell us, Dan or Brad or Chris, when is this conference exactly for 2025?
Well, it's the 13th through the 15th. There will be limited sessions on the 13th. The planned sessions or panels will start on the 14th and run through the 15th.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, today's session is on business development, right? And the reason for this is because we've all come together and we've, pretty much decided that, especially given that the topics that are out there, right now that are trending is very heavily on business development and for different reasons. I know that Brad, Dan, all of you guys, a lot of what you guys talk about often is, how the sites are doing and how you guys are doing, and also like regulatory and things like that. But I think one of the hot topics is, the economy, right? And I feel like business development really is going to help like gear sites or gauge them to move forward and be a little bit more prepared should, anything happen. But all right, so the way we're going to do this today, right? We want to ensure that everybody is able to actually, one, we want you to engage. We want to know what's going on as far as the things that you would actually like to see business development in the conference, in our conference, SOS conference. But also, what kind of questions do you have as a site owner, whether you're new or you're seasoned, right? We want to make sure that we're able to help you.
So more sponsors to be the sponsors, and excited about that because like what we're trying to do is have a direct communication between and amongst sites, but also between sites and the stakeholders without any intermediaries that are typically like they have their hands along the path too, right? Like, hey, we'll help you. We'll connect you, and then everyone's got their hands out the whole time. So we're trying to just facilitate these kind of direct conversations and interactions. And I know we had sponsors there last year, like actual like drug company sponsors, and that kind of ties into one of our topics about medical science liaisons that I know we're going to get into later. But for me, that's what I'm excited about. I'm not sure about everyone else.
Yeah, I can add to that. Definitely, I'm also excited about sponsors. I'm part of the sponsorship team, helping to get more sponsors. But I think something that's extremely important to me as a site owner is BD, business development. How do we continue to get more study leads for our site and connecting with those individuals? And right now, I'm actually working with a contractor more recently who's managing all of this, because honestly, it's like a full-time job to do that, and I don't have time to do it anymore. And I'm getting leads from various areas. So how do you manage it? How do you stay on top of it so you don't lose that traction? And part of that is following up with MSLs or various other people, but somebody needs to do it. So who's that person to do it? That's something I'm working on internally.
So, Ed, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, not unlike what everyone else has mentioned, but not even just from the outreach and, you know, different sources, but also like how sites manage their pipelines, whether it be through like a CRM or what other type of software to track. Because it's one thing to reach out to a bunch of people, but then have to follow up regularly and sort of. I'm curious to hear what other sites are doing in terms of just managing their pipeline, you know, and what tools they use.
Moni?
Yeah, in addition to that, also, which is very important along with getting more studies, managing the pipeline and all of that, is maintaining a good reputation or building a good reputation as a site. What things that can a site do to keep improving and building good reputation so they can get repeated business?
Just saying, Chris?
Okay, so I'm not trying to push our services. Dan and I have consulting service, but I have this conversation with every new client, and I'm kind of old school, so I recommend keeping a spreadsheet. And again, to Judy's point, if you don't have time to do this, you'll have to appoint somebody or hire somebody. But it doesn't, in my opinion, take a lot of time. I generally tell clients you're looking at an hour or two a week, at least just to reach out. No, Judy, you disagree? You were shaking your head no. So an hour or two a week, reach out to the contacts that you're provided, and continuously reach out at least once a week until you get a response. Now, windows on studies are usually a limited duration. So I tell them no more than 6 weeks is probably necessary, because if you haven't gotten a response from anybody within that 6-week time period, you're not going to, most likely, because that study's usually over in terms of looking for sites. And when you use this route or this means, whatever contact you have, if you're done trying to get a particular study, do keep it, even though maybe you didn't get a response. And of course, the ones you get a response from, keep them, because when you have a new study lead from that sponsor, you have some contacts there with that sponsor. So don't delete those leads that you have in contacts. Keep them somewhere.
Can we get the Olympic shooter meme from Turkey? That's Chris with an XL. Producers, please share this screen.
So I guess one of the things that, I mean, Moni had mentioned, right, is I feel like when you think about the current states, where I feel like a lot of the topic is how do I get more studies, right? What are some things that you guys as site owners do in order to do that?
Well, I think you have to become creative. Obviously, there are many routes that you do that everybody does, but then sometimes you have to be creative. So I remember once we wanted to have a study, and then we found somebody on LinkedIn that was part of that company and in the right role, and we reached out to see what happened, right? And we turned out to have the study. Now that study we have, Dan has it, I have it, and Judy has it. So that sometimes is one way that we can do that using the different platforms. And then also we also network with different sites via email, and people share leads with the different contact information. That's another way that sites can help each other. So that, I mean, there are many. I'm just mentioning two.
Yeah, another thing I can mention is your relationships currently that you have with your sponsors and monitors. That's extremely important, because you will be surprised, you'll be surprised how well, if that's a great relation, they'll refer you to studies. And this is the case with a sponsor, where we just keep getting referred studies and they keep recommending us for various other conditions because they like working with us. And that's extremely important. So be nice to your monitors, as Dan had mentioned in one of his recent videos that that he posted recently. Do what you can to make sure you're on top of everything, because that does go a long way and that creates a long-term relationship. You'll continue to get feasibility questionnaires. You'll continue to get reached out for studies with specific sponsors and CROs, if that's a great working relationship.
So I got a question. So you mean to tell me, because I've seen monitors cry at my site about other sites, like literally physically tear
Really?
up and cry.
Oh my
So
God.
are you saying they won't get studies for that site? They won't help them get studies?
Most likely not. If they have a bad relationship, they're not answering queries, or I don't know, whatever that's. Obviously, if they're making the monitor cry, that's bad. So I would not want to work with that site. If I was a monitor, I wouldn't recommend them. And there is a list, something they probably keep on their end where they say, do not work with the site. I'm sure they do. So
Yeah, absolutely.
have to be careful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was just making a joke.
Oh my God. I want to like not to pick on you, Brad, but since you have recent like expanding in your sites and all of that, how do you how have you been handling that as of recent and bringing on new studies for your new sites?
Yeah, I mean, and it's really all the ways, right? So someone in the comments mentioned MSLs. We still try to reach out, make contact with MSLs as much as possible, as well as talk to the doctors in the practices. A lot of them are approached by reps or MSLs, and maybe don't even know that research is an option. Making sure that they know to inform whoever their relationships are. We have worked with people on a contractual basis to do BD for us. We've worked with even like SMO type relationships. We obviously still do a lot in-house. Pick away, and we've done it. Zymewire is great if you want to track down people within companies. It's a little pricey if you're a small site, probably. And even like Monica mentioned, like trolling on LinkedIn for people who not a great word for it, but the people who are working for these companies. So I think you just have to diversify the way that you do that outreach and hit the pavement, man. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get studies.
Yeah, for sure. Wait, and like I guess with business development on that end, if you were guys to be going to a conference like SOS, what is something that you in particular would want to be, I guess, showcased in that way that is more fluid for people to, I guess, intake? Because obviously, these conversations are being had all the time. What's something that you would like to personally see
Well,
from whoever?
like Dan Otap was on a panel. He's in charge of site engagement. There's going to be people like Jerry from GSK who we're jumping on a webinar with her. I'm going to try to get them to be a sponsor, but like you probably have to give before you ask. And a lot of these sponsors, especially the bigger ones that have US site liaisons, like they want to hear site feedback, site voice. So they are obviously wanting to show up at these things and interact with more sites. But even in between, like the SOS conference, there's 365 days in a year. They're constantly putting on events. Like they can't find enough guests to be on their monthly webinars, and that's something that I saw as an opportunity with the Yuma clinical trials. Like, yeah, we'll join any webinar you want. What do you want us to talk about? And you literally get there in front of like the entire sponsored team, and you could basically showcase your site. Like it's so like simple, but how many sites actually do that? Very few, because they get caught up in their day to day where they're not freeing themselves to have, like Brad said, somebody in charge of doing this, or like Judy said, we want to have somebody in charge of doing this. So at my site, it's me / training a few people for when I'm not here for my sanity. But I think that's what I would want from SOS, is to be introduced to these people like Dan Otap, Jerry, and hopefully we get more now that we're no longer a brand new conference of sponsors, site engagement specialists, whatever they may be called.
So that's basically like doing PR for the site.
Right. And you got to wake up early. Like this webinar I'm going to be on, we have to get up at 6 a.m. to be on it. And we're not guaranteed any studies. We've never worked with GSK, but there's, it's opportunity. We got 5 different specialists we can promote, and all we have to do is give them our opinion on different topics. Like, I think that's a fair exchange.
Agree. Well, I guess in a matter for time, right? We have an hour, and I want to make sure we kind of get to some really important topics that individuals have, confirmed that they're interested in. Another one is, I think a big one is building reputation of the sites. So for me, as you all know, I do work at hi Leisha. I do work at at a sponsor, right? And I guess one of the things, naturally is when you're looking at sites for new studies, naturally you're going for the bigger institutions, the ones that have the funding and the backing to move forward quickly, or however you might need to see it. And then also the sites that have reputation in the sense that they can actually produce patients, right? Good, patient population and all of that. So for sites that are new, and for sites that maybe didn't necessarily get off on the best foot right away, how would you guys go about building your reputation?
Wait, are you telling sites to reach out to you for studies, Ashley?
No, 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 I'm not saying
Oh,
that.
don't reach
No.
out to Ashley.
No, I don't have any sway in that in that field for sure.
We
I
need more
do
people like you.
I do see that side, but I don't touch it, unfortunately.
Branding
Um,
is like, okay, here's a story. I don't want to hog the whole thing, but this is a story that just happened this week. So yesterday, a very big sponsor came here. They've already worked with us in the past, but it's for a new PI. So like they sent someone else from another department. They did like a 1 hour meeting, a virtual with Zoom with our PI. And then they came here yesterday, and yesterday I wasn't here. So I was like worried. Like I was telling my staff Wednesday, hey, make sure when they come, you go here, then you show them this, then you do this, then you don't talk about this. That lady literally came, she stayed for 15 minutes and she told Katie, you guys are getting the study. I just came out here because sponsor wants to make sure sites are not operating out of storage units like they are in some states. Like they
Oh,
just want very
really?
basic things. It's not complex. They want to make sure you're legit. So when you
mhm,
talk about branding, just be a real person. Like
Mhm.
try not to bullshit.
mhm,
Like just do what you say you're gonna do. Have a PI that's involved and have coordinators that work hard. Like it's not difficult to create branding or to create awareness. And unfortunately, there's a lot of sites that don't because they see this as a quick buck and kind of tarnishes it for everyone else. So that's my quick little story, but it's not that complicated.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a lot of it's just being easy to work with, right? Like, I mean, I've worked in different, and you guys all have across different site models. I think if you can be flat and agile, that alone is going to get you a lot of business. I mean, we have a university that's no more than 5 miles down the road, and being told that, like, from reps that they can't get in there for 5 months or 5 weeks, maybe, I don't know, whatever, somewhere in between there. You can come right in. We can work with you. We can get a study started before you can even get in the door
mhm.
down the street. That's a big advantage. And then obviously, if you have access to patients, I mean, I think to Dan's point, it's not complicated. Like they just want sites to enroll patients, right? And don't screw up too bad. And maybe that's oversimplifying. But yeah, if you can be easy to work with and enroll patients and move quickly, I think you're, I don't know, 85% of the way there probably.
And how effectively you demonstrate that is your branding. Like that's just branding. Like forget about all this complex stuff. You need a TikTok, all this nonsense. Just showcasing that you can do what Brad and I just said is branding.
And I will tell you, like internally, as far as conversations go, it's more of um, almost all the time, what will get repeated outside of, oh, well, the site enrolled a lot is they were really easy to work with. They constantly communicated, and it doesn't mean communication as in we need something from you, get it done right away. It's more like, okay, we request something from you as a sponsor. You respond and you say, hey, I can't get that to you right now, but give me X amount of days. I will make sure I get this to you, right? So not only communicating very quickly, but then effectively actually following through with that because you are at that point, then you're reliable, right? So that is second to, oh, that site enrolled a lot of patients. And previously, prior to going to sponsor, when I was at CRO as a CRA, one of the biggest issues that I personally had, if site got on bad end with me, was more of not if they were behind on XYZ. That really never bothered me. It was more of the fact that if I tried to talk with them and the coordinator or somebody was really hostile because they were either overworked or stressed out, they transitioned that information back to me when I was also just trying to necessarily do my job. But more so the fact that it was like the response was very vague and I didn't know what the site was going to do when they were going to do it. It was just very general communication. And there was nothing I could process back to the CTM or the sponsor. And then that would then trickle, the irritation would trickle upwards, right? Because they don't know what's going to happen. What's the end result? We can't expect it. We can't communicate with the other cross-functional teams to let them know that this will happen at XYZ time. So definitely going back to having a really great coordinator and or data manager that on site that can actually communicate correctly on time and effectively pull through.
That's branding, is doing what you said you're going to do. Like just how we complain about CROs or sponsors, like, oh, we didn't get paid, in 159 days or whatever. I'm actually not referring to your post, Brad. I'm thinking about someone else, but I remember you saying something similar. Like they complain about us too. They're just more professional than us because they work for big companies. They're not allowed to like go on LinkedIn tirades, but they could probably make just as many memes about us as we make of them. Like, oh, this site said they can do all this stuff in 2 weeks, and then when they actually get the study, now we don't hear from them. Like that's, if I were on the sponsor side, I'd be making memes about sites all the time too. So part of branding, like the best branding you can do is just do a good job in the studies you get. That's all the branding you need. You don't need a fancy website. You don't need a TikTok, even though we're going to talk about that stuff too. Just do a good job on the studies you have and don't piss off sponsors.
You're muted, Ashley.
Oops, sorry. But I guess one of the things to mention, you're talking about TikTok, is how heavily do you guys use? And I mean, Judy, Brad, and Dan, you guys have recently been growing quite a lot in your sites. I don't know if you guys have TikTok, but as far as social medias go, how heavily do you all utilize that? And do you have like an actual set system that works for you guys?
Yeah, we use it a lot. So we use Facebook, Instagram. I think TikTok was something we were trying. And actually, I do contract with someone, Luis. Luis, who has been working with us for a few years, who he was an expert like marketing stuff, and then we trained him on research. He didn't know nothing about research, and so he's taken over our social media accounts the past couple years, and he has a whole system in place. Like weekly, he's developing content, posting and posting on all our social media platforms. But also, what we've done recently is we have some of our staff that are working on videos, or I don't know if they're called memes, where they're posting on our Instagram to bring more awareness and to our social media accounts that have nothing to do necessarily about research, but it's involving our research staff. So it's something we've developed over the years. So we just didn't start this yesterday, but it is an investment in our company that we've done to continue to create awareness and have people come to our social media sites and to learn about our research studies to educate. So it's a whole thing we've been doing, which I definitely recommend if you can.
Yeah, we've not done, honestly, not that much. I think it was actually easier and we were more active when we were smaller. And then as we grew, it kind of I actually dragged in the person doing a lot of that into the regulatory role. I was like, hey, cool, now we're busy. We need help. Like, let's do this. And now kind of getting back to like probably contracting a lot of it out. And working with some people who are experts at it, just because, I mean, look, I'm great at being loud on LinkedIn, but like, I don't have time for the rest of it. So I think,
it's a lot.
Just working with professionals who can help with that. But yeah, frankly, something we've not spent as much time doing as I would like to. So, I mean, hell, something I'd like to learn about.
What about you, Dan?
You can do it. Yeah. I mean, we have a videographer, Daniel, who's also the SOS videographer. So once a month, we'll alternate who interviews a business owner from the community. We'll make shorts out of it. We'll make like a pillar piece of content for that month. The lowest hanging fruit is honestly like those businesses we interview. They get more like after the show, they get curious. Oh, what do you guys do? And then we actually get referrals based off of like the offline interactions with them as opposed to the actual content itself. And then one of our SOS sponsors, Inato, recently made it worthwhile for sites to start doing this. So they're asking now for your branding content to upload when you apply for studies. So sponsors will see the branding. So, well, like, I'm kind of like Brad. We get patient referrals from our doctors. We don't really need like the community engagement stuff. Um, but it's been good for the community. It's been good for like local businesses. And then for this, it's impressive to the sponsors too. And we've been using Patient Ace, which shameless plug, but I'm a co-owner. But it's been going really well too.
Nice. We have David here saying, I attended the inaugural SOS in Tucson with Inato. It was a great time. Cannot wait for March's conference. Awesome. Happy to have you, David, and hope to see you again. And then we have a LinkedIn user.
Identify yourself.
I know. Tucson event was great, and look forward to the next one in this topic. Yeah, I'm excited for this topic solely more for the fact of how much engagement we got at the first conference. I didn't even get to go to all of the branched out sessions, but I heard they were very active. And so I feel like this section's really going to be great, right? Let's see, we have another one here. Mention, hi everyone. I have a dual role at Epi Medical Research that has me do outreach to sponsors for studies, private practice physicians, and smaller medical groups to gauge interest in potential partnerships. Where is it? My goal is to set up a discovery call to establish rapport and build brand awareness. I track the outreach cadence on Zoho.
That's
I've heard
good
of
because
Zoho.
someone was asking about CRM, Chintan. I was about to ask you to put that question up, but Edward, there you go, Chintan. Like Edward uses Zoho, and that's the
Awesome.
CRM he uses.
Oh, we found the
I like
LinkedIn
HubSpot.
HubSpot. I don't think I've actually fully used HubSpot.
I don't
Interesting.
use any, which
I
is
haven't
nice.
used any. I use Excel. I use Excel. I'm
No,
so old
we
school.
use Monday, so
Mhm.
everybody knows exactly where we are in the process or in each
Mhm.
study, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
feel
not.
like we need to use Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
It
actually.
gives you-
I looked into it, but then when I saw you had to go through this process to set it up, I gave up. So I just went back to Excel.
You're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We use in the past. What's the name of the other one? The big one. I forgot the name.
Sales,
Salesforce.
Salesforce.
right?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I was just like, that's too much for me. So Monday is more simple.
We use a
but
giant whiteboard
yeah,
in the office.
No, that's really old school.
yeah, but
Yeah.
Salesforce is amazing too. I mean, Salesforce, if you organize it, is great. I mean, you can have the record of absolutely everything.
awesome. Well, thank you. This is the LinkedIn user, Dr. Quadri. My apologies if I'm butchering your name, with CCRI out of Houston, Texas. I'm from Austin, Texas. Awesome. We have a request if we can do another panel on Monday. I mean, I would love to keep doing these super often.
Absolutely.
All of our schedules are crazy, honestly. I mean, just everybody what they're doing, it's just crazy busy. Well, we'll
You want
definitely
Monday? We got
we
Monday.
go.
No, Monday was the
Yeah.
CRM demonic week.
Yeah.
Chintan, I think another way that we can also keep on moving more this webinars or this podcast is by hearing your questions or inquiries
Yes.
that you want us to maybe include in the conference, or for us to talk in the roundtables, so we can assess what is the most important things that right now the sites wants to know. We already know what we like and what we want, but we will want to hear the voice of everybody, right? So we can
Yes.
make a very to the point conference.
Yes, we'll also be doing a poll online as well as sending out emails. If you guys have not already been receiving the emails, please, Monica, if you can link it back again, the actual SOS email, make sure that it is tagged on your actual inbox, because sometimes it'll go straight to, junk mail because your inbox doesn't recognize it. But emails will be sending out polls. We want to, again, remember, SOS is not a conference that we're just deciding here. We want to gauge against to what you guys actually need, because that's the whole point, right? We're making it for you. So anything that you can do to give us some feedback would be great. We have Marie Bear. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. We use HubSpot, but here Monday is good. Awesome. We
I
have
gotta
here.
get on this Monday thing.
I think
Look.
Say
that should be a big topic. CRM.
So
Oh, there you have it.
if we
There you
do
go.
I say I would do a CRM podcast because I find it really fascinating. So
Well, let's
Yeah.
do it. You want to
Yeah.
do it, Brad? Well, we'll schedule something. We'll schedule something. Get it on the books.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that sounds good.
get Monday to sponsor it, and then
Okay.
I
Oh
know,
yeah.
We
Or
can get
Zoho.
we'd get Tuesday.
Tuesday. So we have. Can someone give a demo on how to use Zoho or HubSpot or Salesforce for tracking leads and sponsor
I
interactions?
think they give demos,
Ooh,
right?
That's
You
a
reach
good
out to
one.
them.
Yeah, the beauty of Salesforce is that you have it's customizable. So basically you can create your own how you want it. But then you can keep the record of when was the last phone call, what did you speak about it,
Mm,
and all the record for, so if somebody comes and read it, they have the whole story, they know where they are and when was the last time and what was
right.
discussed in this last conversation. And then you can have it as leads or you can have it as done deal or whatever you have to organize. And you can have not just the patients but also the sponsors or the studies. You can have also all the basically everything that you manage in the clinic, but it requires you to create or customize it. So
And that's
it
Salesforce? Or
requires
is that
time. Yeah.
Salesforce? Okay.
Awesome. I mean, that's something we'll definitely consider. I mean, there's
Yeah.
obviously going to be a lot of potential site owners as well as new site owners. So I think that's something of good interest, and we'll definitely take note of that. So thank you. So we have just CRM. Zoho is super
Other
user friendly. Monica?
Well, nice. I mean, there are also other platforms that we already use, like for like the e-source and all of that provides that extension. So that may be something good to look at too, and not just have it separate platforms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, there you go. They said sponsorship for SOS. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely, if that is a request of,
Pam, make that happen.
yeah.
And, like, I don't
Any
know,
of, does
we'll-
anybody know any of the contacts for these CRMs?
I know.
Our sponsorship will reach out.
For sure. All right. Well, again, just to make sure of time, we want to make sure we can touch on as many subjects as possible. I think the next good one is, opening up your funnel to new PIs. I think this is a big one. I personally have, friends that are looking to open up sites very soon, and they're in that process right now, considering PIs and if, it's a good match or not. So what are some of the things that you guys do? One, to funnel new PIs, but also to, I guess, evaluate them, especially because you guys are already used to working with different PIs and sub-Is.
I mean, I think a lot of our most successful PIs have come through word of mouth with our current PIs. I mean, or sub-Is. I feel like it's a small club, at least here. So somebody's doing well and they like it, they want to show off or get other people involved. That's worked and it's been worked really well. And even making the referring PI a sub-I, so they get a taste of what's going on. So you start linking things together, and I think that becomes really valuable. I think it's tough. It's tough because guys are out there doctors getting called or emails about research all the time. I mean, I see it. My doctors are getting hit up by a bunch of competing companies
Oh,
all the time, which is totally fine. It's fair game. But I think, if you come with a warm intro and from someone they trust, that goes a long way versus the sort of cold outreach. At least seems like it's been the case for me.
do you have any incentives, Brad, or do you do things to kind of keep that?
Yeah, we've played around with like small percentages for relationship referral, so to speak. But we played around with it. I don't know that it's perfect yet, but I'd be curious to hear what other people have done too, if that's been worthwhile.
Yeah, I would say kind of like in a similar community, we're smaller community. So usually a lot of our physicians know each other. They all know my PI. So it is easier to connect with them because when I say where I'm from, they're more interested and open, willing for us to talk about research. So two things we've done is we've done lunch and learns where we're going to educate the staff in the clinic about what we do for referrals. but also we're engaging the providers, physicians there to see if they're interested in research. So we're kind of engaging both, and that's worked a lot to get a lot of doctors interested and open their office to us, but also to refer patients. So those are two things, and that might work better in a smaller community than a larger city. And so just following up and finding those ideal studies that are perfect for that patient. So what patients do they treat that they have a large database of? And what can you bring to them, whether it's them being a PI or a sub-I on the studies and using your PI as a PI until they get more experienced, right, in clinical research.
Yeah, we do similar. I mean, like it's kind of like a engagement or community engagement, but just directly with the doctors and educating them about it. I also have utilized the opportunities that some sponsors provide, like they offer us their medical license to go and speak with the other or other clinics on our behalf, and we have used that in the past, and that has built some good relationships with different older doctors.
Nice. What about you, Dan?
I mean, same thing. It's a small town. The internal medicine was the first guy, huge practice, and whenever I needed a specialist, he would tell me where to go if it was possible, and if not, he would tell me it's not. There's no one in town with that specialty, so at least I know not to waste my time. Um, Now there are certain specialties where he does not have relationships with that. We have to resort to just old school like lunch and learn, going out there and setting up time to meet. And for that kind of stuff, I'm trying to train Lana, who's here today, on doing some of that. But, we only have so much time in the day.
So, I mean, outside of what you guys have mentioned, and this is something I've noticed since coming into the industry, um, I previously, pre-med, I was in the conferences for, I'd go to medical doctor conferences and things like that. There's obviously a surplus of physicians out there. I have yet to hear, and I listen to a bunch of podcasts all the time. I've yet to hear how people are actually actively utilizing those areas to to bring in, or at least to educate those physicians actively outside of academia research, because I feel that if they actually knew the difference, a lot of them would go more towards private than academia, especially like Brad just mentioned. And I know I've experienced it on many studies I've been involved in, where you're there waiting 6 to 8 months for these sites to come on, and then on top of that, you're investing so much because they're academic sites, and then you know they're already so far into the study, and they come up with maybe 1 or 2 patients, and there's sites that are smaller that are coming out with 10, 15, 20, 25, and the investment and the time build up to that and working that particular site just kind of a waste, right? And so I feel there's a gap there that people need to figure out how to bridge that. And I have some ideas on that. And obviously, those are one of the things that I want to bring. See if you guys are open to that, and then maybe eventually talk more in depth about that. Because I do feel that some sites would actually be willing to invest time in one person and utilizing that in some way. So I don't know. Have you guys tried those pathways at all at one point in your site career?
Well, and I'll say this. I don't know if this is kind of along the same lines, but
Yeah.
I mean, how I got in with a large hospital system was through an MSL who I didn't have any real connection with other than I reached out on LinkedIn. They're local. They're in a therapeutic area I wanted to get into. And I explained my model, and she knows all the doctors around. And she goes, "Oh, well, I know this doctor. He's got a great practice, a bunch of patients, doesn't have any research infrastructure. Why don't I just introduce you guys?" And that kind of kicked off the whole thing. And it actually happened again for the site in Arkansas. It was through an oncology group. Uh, they were basically like, you know what, this model is great. There's a hospital been trying to work with. You guys should go talk to them. So I think people are recognizing like we need alternatives, and we need more access in rural areas where there aren't research. So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of possibilities, but you can get crazy with chasing down those opportunities because
Yeah.
they're everywhere.
Yeah, I have one friend right now. She would technically be a sub-I, right? She's a PA. And she has a friend who's a physician. They both have worked different therapeutics in the hospitals for so long, and they're very much tired of that corporate running, however you want to call it, right? So, they're trying to team up, and all I kept hearing her tell me was, I've literally been trying to apply everywhere, and it's just, the response to my education and my level of experience, it doesn't reflect, the flexibility isn't there either, and all these kinds of things. And I'm just like, well, why haven't you considered research? And her first response, and mind you, she has her PhD, she has like at least 15 years behind her in so many areas, and she's like, well, what's research? Is it, isn't it, and I tell her about it. She's like, why isn't that everywhere? And I'm like, yes, exactly. So she is literally right now, just because of that one conversation, because she was tired of her job, she's been in conversation with her friend who's a physician who's in the same space, and they're looking to get a site and then eventually maybe move forward at that point. So again, it's just, I think if you network well and try to find places where these physicians are roaming, I feel like it's endless. I just think a lot of people have a very narrow pathway. How do they say, if it's not broken, don't fix it, but maybe there's a spare or something, however you want to put it. So yeah, well, we have Martha Falcon, a site manager at Acevedo Clinical Research Associates. We have a great site and amazing staff and investigators. Our issues is that Miami, Florida is saturated, and some sponsors won't even come to Florida anymore. And do select sites in South Florida right away. What advice do you guys have to get more opportunities or to get to study leads faster? I don't know, Dan. I know you're talking about Robert with this the other day on one of
Yeah,
y'all's
I mean it's
podcasts.
pretty bad. It's pretty bad for Miami sites. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
It's really tough. What I would do if I had a site in Miami, I would scramble just like Brad did to get Arkansas, and he has Oklahoma. I would try to find some way to make a site like in Jacksonville, or even if you can
Mhm.
go like outside the state, like the next neighboring state, and
Mhm.
then have that as like a magnet, and then it at least gives you like a chance to prove yourself, and then have, hey, you know what? I also own a site in Miami. By that time, they already know you, because
Mhm.
this person who came to our site yesterday for 15 minutes. She literally flew from Charlotte, North Carolina to Yuma,
Wow.
which is not easy to get to, and stayed 15 minutes and said, I'm done. I don't need to see anymore. You guys will get to study, because she said sites in Florida are using storage units to do research. So I
Wow.
just needed to make sure that's not the case here. I never heard of Yuma. So
Huh.
that's the problem that no one's telling you guys in
Mhm.
Miami about. So if I were there, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else either. I would have a site somewhere else, and then use that to attract studies to your Miami site once you've gotten over that we are not a con artist hurdle, which is a huge
Mhm.
hurdle to overcome.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would just add to what Dan said. I don't think Jacksonville's the solution. And that's why Dan quickly moved on to another state. So surrounding states, great. Alabama, Georgia, anything, that's near you, that's I guess convenient for you to get to maybe once in a while. But Florida as a whole, I would try to stay out of, honestly. It's not horrible. I mean, again, getting back to those who've been here the whole time, we have clients in Florida, and many of them are quite successful. Um, the problem is when you're new to research, it's very difficult to get established.
Mhm.
Um, it's much easier in a state that's not so competitive.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the more
Yeah,
you remove yourself from being like a research site and more of a, my PI is a doctor, and with a private practice, align yourself more with that, and then
Mhm.
just only talk to MSLs and sales reps like all day long,
Hmm.
and don't even have conversations with CROs until you have to.
I would even go as far as saying, from things that I've experienced in the past with my previous work, is if you're starting site, definitely ensuring that physicians are licensed, as opposed to I guess other forms of licensing or education. Just because, again, if you're starting and also you're in a saturated area, you want to make sure that you look the basis but foundational. And then also with the whole poll right now on diversity, I know that it's a in Florida, everybody speaks Spanish or XYZ. If it's possible for you to have, I mean, every potential, like a translator, language, the more languages, I feel that would maybe be more enticing to the sponsor to maybe take a little bit more of a chance with you in that sense, just because ultimately they're having to make numbers, and it does become an issue when they have different translated documents. They need different types of patients, and one site doesn't have a translator or may have issues with that, right? And so that's, I would say that would be another one. We have that question: would leveraging diversity help? Yes.
It does when you're not in an area that has no diversity.
Yeah.
But if you're in Florida, what it's not going to help you, right? Because
Yes,
everybody has
everybody has
diversity.
it.
Yeah, but I think in Florida, obviously the state built created the bad reputation. It's not just one clinic, but I think also you can also work on things like, for example, when you're applying for studies, if you're doing it via email, maybe sending things specific to your clinic, like for example, a virtual tour from your clinic. This is the our doctor, like introducing the site and show the reality of your site in that video. That's very helpful. I did that in the past, and the people really appreciated the video. That I did that during, I don't remember when, but we were just sending the videos, the virtual tours, and they really liked it. So because now they can see with their own eyes, even before reaching out, okay, this is a real site, this is a real principal investigator. They have all the infrastructure required, and then build on obviously that email with your maybe obviously the principal investigator CV and things like that, that helps the site to show the reality and build the reputation just in an email.
If I were a site in Florida in Miami, I would have a goodwill budget, like going out of my way to interview people and make sure sponsors see that, like, hey, we're spending our own money to interview, local business owners. I would get on every single board. Again, these sponsors are dying for sites to join their boards. Like, all they have is a bunch of other sponsors, and they sit around on these boards and talk about site issues. Well, because sites are too busy to get on. So if you're a site in Florida, it's not optional. Like, you need to find people like Dan Otap. You need to find people like Jerry, who I interviewed recently, and ask, how can you be involved? How can you get on their boards, their site diversity boards, whatever they call them. Get out of your like, you have to stand out somehow, and their only way to do that is to do things nobody else wants to do.
Yeah, and
Just
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, you do it, Chris. Go for it.
I was just going to say, to add on what Dan's saying there, it's not impossible in Miami. It's not impossible in Florida or anywhere else in the country. The problem is it's just more difficult in Florida, and significantly so. I mean, it's just going to take more effort, and Dan's just prescribing a route that's going to require more effort on your behalf.
Yeah, and one thing I would say, and this is where we plug in the conference, is one of the things, we had many things there that happened. One was the offering board. There was people in there that would say, let's meet up and talk about patients. Let's meet up and talk about XYZ. People that were offering help, people that were asking for help, right? And so a good way to connect and just putting up their numbers and emails, right? But also, I think one of the greatest things that I loved that I saw was people openly talking and networking and asking, well, what are you doing at your site? And they were in the same locations. They were connecting. They were getting connected to their study person that's connected to the study, and getting different leads. So if you're a new site and you're having issues with that, we had a lot of Florida sites there. So, finding those individuals, having that communication, and if they're having the same issues, being able to come together and talk. There was two, I don't know if they're in Miami, but I do remember talking to two females, and their ideas, the things that they were doing, was really interesting. And that goes for all the other topics. People were talking about the different strategies they did and they had, and I was just like, man, I'd never heard those things before. But because people are going there not only to learn, but also to collaborate. It was really a tribe vibe. Like, everybody was really in being cohesive with each other and just working together. And I feel that, if your site is having issues, having a problem, it's one thing to reach out to a site via email or a call when we're all busy in the span of time throughout day, every day. But it's a different thing to go to a conference and people are actually there to find help and be helpful and sit down and actually talk with them when they have time sanctioned for that. And so I definitely think that you should consider coming to the conference, and especially all those that are here now. It's really it's very different, and whole reason why we're investing all this time because it's great. We have here. Do you have a list of boards that they are looking
No,
sites to join? Nope.
no, but they found me probably because I'm on LinkedIn, like posting stuff. So you just need to like get loud, and they'll find you. And then just the people I interview, you could start with there. Jerry, um, we have Dan Otap from Genentech. Those are two that I know of off the top of my head, but I know there's like dozens of them that I haven't met either.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah,
many out there. It comes down to networking.
They're out there. There's
but
like
that, but yeah, that now that you mention, I was invited recently to one. I just received the email like 2 days ago.
yeah,
Hmm.
those things. Just you got to jump at those things if you're in Florida. If you're in like Imperial Valley, not so much. Like we have, you're in a unique place. But if you're in Miami, yeah, you got to differentiate yourself, just like Jade Alicia said. I mean, that's exactly my point. You have to be a unique site.
What do you have that others don't have? And what's going to stand out? And how are you going to be successful compared to everybody else around you?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things, and I've noticed not on my work experience, but in collaborating and talking to other people with our outside of things that we do, people have these ideas. They have, the emphasis on how it's great, all these kinds of things. They can sell it, they can speak their head off of things. But when it comes to presentation, I feel most people lack in that space. And I think you forget that you're a site, you're an entrepreneur, but you're dealing with corporate America, and corporate America, they're structured for precision and formalities and all those kinds of things that as entrepreneurs we're like, well, we don't give a shit, like here's the data, like obviously, what else do you need? But that's not how it works, right? Especially when you can be dealing with a study lead, VP, XYZ, but that person still has somebody else to answer to who wants structure, right? Because they're the ones not talking. They're not being the ones sold this idea to, right? And so people need to get very serious and straight about how they present this stuff. If it's possible to hire somebody or have somebody, consult every now and then where they're looking over your PowerPoints or looking over your presentation and how it looks, because you can be a beginner site, but if you come in and really showcase high level presentation, it's a no-brainer. You look like a very strong, reliable asset because you're already presenting like you're high level. And so I feel not everybody has to do that, but I feel that it's a huge help. Um, just makes a difference. It's literally the smallest comments, because most of the people that get to sponsorship level and working in sponsorship level, they get there because they're extremely organized. They have extreme structure. They also follow rules and orders very well, right? And they just keep driving up to the top. And they then want that from those under them, right? As far as who works for them. And that means that they're going to want almost exactly, if not somewhat the same from the sites they're bringing on, right? Because it shows security in a sense. So something to mention there.
Now
And
that you mentioned that, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was going to tell Martha, by the time there is a list of boards that you looking to join, it's too late because then every site in Miami is going to be on that. So the whole point of there not being a list is your advantage.
Yeah. Dig as much as you can. The
Yeah,
amount of hours.
but now that you mentioned that about the structure, all of that, we were talking the other day with Robert, and he was mentioning that sometimes he receives emails in which people just send an email, and it sounds like they are demanding to be part of the study. No greetings, no nothing. So for him, that was something, and he was talking about how important those little details are. Like, I mean, we're wondering if you have if you're adding a site, right? You're not demanding. I mean, they don't have to answer to those emails.
If you
And
send an
even
email like
sometimes, yeah,
that, you're a moron. You don't deserve to be successful.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not
bottom
like
line.
a chit chat, and even and on top of that, aside from the greetings, if you're not looking at your grammar, if you're not looking at the structure, I have been working in this industry, and even to this day, I will be notified like, hey, your email wasn't necessarily correct. Please go back and restructure it. Right. And it's just, you're dealing with people that are very specific. They obviously won't tell you that as a site, but it's going to reflect, especially if you're dealing with somebody who's super analytical or like pinpointing about, oh, you know, this is you're trying to get a study here, at least put some emphasis or extra work behind it. And even if they're not like that, it just shows extra. You show up extra, you sometimes get extra. And so just, yeah, oh my gosh. I guess to be mindful of everybody's time, we're kind of already closing it out. Please don't miss out on September's session. This is where we're going to be talking and breaking down the actual sessions for the conference. We'll be doing polls, getting feedback. Please be responding and looking at the LinkedIn's post from SOS. We will be doing the polls there. Please interact with that, share. It really helps to kind of spread the word. If you want to join our next event in September, please go to the events section under our SOS LinkedIn page and go ahead and click attend, and we'll be there waiting for you guys. Monica, if you can please put in the SOS LinkedIn page and the SOS website. You guys want to know more about the conference, look at the SOS website. If you have not already registered, please go and register. We're still in early bird phase, so that'd be great. Again, it's in March 13th through the 15th of 2025, and we're very excited about this. So, and if
And
yeah, go ahead, Moni.
yeah, and next one is gonna be in vibrant Oklahoma City.
Yes. Yes, I actually have a photo here. I don't know if you can see it. Or is it right there? Whoop. Sorry. My
Yeah.
coordination is off. I didn't
Yes.
think much of Oklahoma City, just, thinking about the state, but when you actually Google it, it's a mix between Dallas and Austin from what I've heard from people that have gone there that are from Austin, Texas. So, Austin, Texas is a lot of fun. So for them to say that makes me excited. So, definitely looking forward to that. But be on the lookout for more posts and information. Next week we'll be announcing a collaboration. So just again, keep us in the space and keep liking, sharing, please. And we'll see you next month, you guys.
SaveOurSites.com. Do it now and don't worry about it later. You'll save money.
Yes. All right, you guys. You have a good one.
Bye.